So with this, we'll move ahead with to our next technology presentation. But before that, I would like to give us a reminder to our audience that if you have any queries, you can drop the queries on the left side of the, you can see that Q&A option on the left side of the screen. Also, if you want to see the recording of our past panel session, if you have missed out in any case, you can ask or maybe get in touch with our team. You can you have the option of help desk at the auditorium. You can ask and drop your queries there. So without any further ado, we'll move to the next technology presentation of the day by Mr. Joe Zacharia. He's India Client Technologist, Lenovo India. Joe has over 20 years of experience in the corporate IT industry, working in large. In his previous role, Joe's handled large horizontal customer transformation programs, including the executive briefing program to get a deep understanding of the customer's challenges, strategy, and to help customers transform and modernize their IT landscape. So, very warm welcome to Mr. Jose. Are we audible to you?
Yes. Am I audible?
Yes, of course, you're audible. So, are you ready for the technology presentation?
Yes, thank you for having me on stage. And can you confirm that my screen is visible?
Pardon?
Can you confirm my screen is visible?
Yes, it is. It is visible. Yeah. I think we're good. Yeah.
Sure. So thank you for having me on stage. Before we get to the topic of discussion, what I will do is let me give you a quick introduction about Lenovo as an organization, and then we will get to the topic of discussion. So globally, we do a little over $50 billion in revenue. We do business in over 180 different countries with about 63,000 employees. Out of the 63,000 employees, we've got about 10,000 who are dedicated for R&D and technical related activities. And they're spread across 15 R&D locations and 4 AI innovation centers. This is what brings in the prawness or technical prawness. And with this structure in place, we've clearly established leadership, global leadership in the PC segment. On the data center side, we're rated number 1 for performance, reliability, and supercomputers. Now, at the highest level, the vision of this company is modern technology for all. Now, when I break this down into an executionable level, we call it the 3S strategy: the smart infrastructure, smart IoT, and smart verticals. We're now going into different industries, different verticals, trying to figure out what are the gaps which exist, what are the problems which exist in those industries, and trying to see if we can solve those problems using the power of technology. So with that said, let me switch gears to the topic of discussion today. Now, this is a point of view which we have in these changing times because of the pandemic situation. The global pandemic has virtually got everybody outside of offices. So in this scenario, when we look at it, we can broadly put the trends in 3 different buckets. The first one is, in these changing times, are you able to ensure that your employees get the right tools and technologies so that he or she is able to perform her job or his job at the optimal level? The second one is, in the new normal, are you able to maintain the security postures required by the organization? We heard about the security concerns in the previous panel. Are you able to maintain this? And are you able to bring all of your employees together so that they can innovate, collaborate, still maintain that customer touch points required? And the final one is, it's a distributed environment now. Now, in this distributed environment, how can you seamlessly render IT support in a consumer-grade fashion? So now let's focus our attention into all of these areas. The first one I will focus my attention and conversation to is around the services, support services. Today, clearly, this is the biggest problem which customers are facing. In the recent past, we've got a surge of requests coming in to help customers set up remote help desk and also provide that last mile of serviceability. We've got a very, very strong services organization, which is very deeply penetrated in the country. Now, we also have a strategy called the service-led transformation. And using that service-led transformation strategy, we are able to help customers in this remote working environment. Now, when I look at the services portfolio, the way I would design the portfolio, especially for the end user organization, is I wear the lens of the product lifecycle. It all starts with what your current state is. How is that state changing? And how do you want to, or what type of experiences do you want to deliver to your employees and customers? How do you configure these machines as per standards of your organization? What's your deployment and support strategy? How do you manage these machines so that you're able to drive the best efficiency and the optimal TCO? And finally, once the life cycle of these machines end, how do you retire them? What do you do with the data? How do you destroy that data which is there in those machines? Some of our customers come back and tell us, I want you to look at the entire module of the product lifecycle. I want you to manage that in an as-a-service model. There are a few customers who come back and tell us, I'll pick and choose some of these modules which I feel will add value in my current scenario and strategy. And we are open to doing that as well. But what we're seeing as a technology provider in this pandemic situation is there is a big issue on providing the serviceability for the last mile. And we're trying to address that. We help create different structures in place, and we've been able to service our customers in the last 1 year. Now let's shift focus to security. In the last panel, you heard about the different aspects related to cybersecurity. This is one of the most hotly debated topics within the industry. All of us are aware of the sophisticated nature of the attacks. So our entire focus as a company is trying to look at the end user organization and the endpoint security. What we've done is we've taken all of our solutions and put it under this umbrella called the ThinkShield. Now, there are two different aspects to the portfolio. One is any type of attack which is targeted at your hardware below the OS layer. And then there is the type of attack which is at the OS or above the OS layer. Now, for any hardware-related attacks, what we do is we built in security features into our devices while we sell them to the market. For anything at the OS or above, we address it using the software portfolio which we carry under ThinkShield. Now, today, with the nature of the sophistication of these attacks, especially for the endpoints, you should start thinking about capabilities around next generation antivirus, because it not only helps you prevent those attacks, but in the eventuality that you've been attacked, it helps you detect, respond to those attacks, and also automatically remediate back to the last original state. Now, with this pandemic in place, we're hearing of a couple of more scenarios. Say a remote employee who decides to leave the organization, decides to walk away with a laptop, or he doesn't bring those machines back to IT. Or if there's a theft in a tier 2, tier 3 city, what do you do? How do you maintain the persistence and the control of the devices so that now you can have the ability to assess what is the risk associated with that data on the machine? You have the ability to clean wipe the data, and you also have the ability to neutralize that machine in a totally unworkable condition. Now, these are not the exhaustive use cases which we handle, but these are some of those use cases which we're hearing loudly from our customer base. And we address all of the endpoint scenarios, security scenarios, using the ThinkShield portfolio. Now, let me just quickly, change the conversation to a different direction. What if I gave you the capability to do proactive monitoring and the ability to predict a failure? Essentially, what I'm trying to do is I give you the ability to reduce your downtime. About 4 months back, we launched a software called the Lenovo Device Intelligence. What this software does is it collects all the logs from the underlying infrastructure, puts it to an AI engine, and gives you the ability to predict failures and notify IT. I also can bring in the capability to assign a health score to these machines so that at any given point of time, you exactly know what the current state of IT, at least in the end user organization, is. Now, all of the softwares which I mentioned, including this one and the security softwares, are all agnostic to the hardware. It just doesn't matter what is the brand of the hardware which is underneath. It'll give you the ability to solve problems. Now let's focus on the business side. Now, you still have profiles within your organization, be it insurance, personal banking, wealth management, who still need to have high degree of customer touch points or interactions. Now, with this pandemic situation, either those interactions have come down or they've shifted online. Now, the big request which we're getting from customer side is, in this online engagement, can I elevate that experience and make it more immersive? We've got a division called the Smart Office Division, which has got a portfolio, and that uses the underlying UC platform. It can be Zoom, Microsoft Teams, or Google Meet, and it gives you that immersive experience to collaborate and connect with your customers. Now, when I go into a branch, the typical early conversations which we're hearing are when customers come into the branch, can I service the customer given the kind of experience he requires with minimal touch points? I can either feed him data before he makes his first contact with somebody in the branch, or I can bring in some interactive capability or a self-service capability. Now, what we've done is we've got a managed services offering for digital signage. It's a central platform which we've created. It can take data from any application source. It's got a lot of out-of-the-box integrations. If you have homegrown applications, and if we need to work on integrations, we will work on the out-of-the-box integration. It can curate data centrally, and it can dissipate based on how you want on a target device. I can also bring in the self-service capability and the interactive capability using the kiosks. And these are some of those early conversations we're hearing from some of our customers. Now, coming back to another point, about 3 months back, organizations were looking at opening up before the second wave of COVID hit us really bad. In the next phase, when offices open up, when your corporate offices, back-end offices open up and employees go back to offices, what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a system which can allow you to maintain all of the compliances required, all the protocols required, social distancing, uh, avoid clustering in the offices. So we've created a workspace monitoring solution, and we offer this as a managed services offering. We were having conversations with a number of organizations until the second wave of COVID hit us really bad. Now, until now, what I've been talking to you about is mainly around end user organization on the endpoints. I talked about the trends. We see some changing trends, especially with respect to employees. How do you ensure that they have the right tools and technologies so that they can work in the best optimal way? We talked about security postures, different types of scenarios when it gets to endpoints. We talked about collaboration. We talked about IT support. And I brought in a few scenarios which we're hearing around the branches. Before I end my conversation, I thought it's important that I, show you this particular platform which we have called the Lenovo Brain. My colleague Subranil talked about the Lenovo Brain in the last panel. What we have done is we've created an open AI platform. It is open, which means you can come in, you can contribute to this. So it's called the Lenovo Brain. You can Google this. If you're interested in contributing, we're more than happy to sign you up and take you as a contribution partner. It brings in all of the AI capabilities required in today's emerging technology. We use this as a repository of technology use cases. And I talked about our strategy of going into verticals. So we use this as a central fulcrum to go and solve some of our vertical problems which we see in the market. Now, this AI platform needs to sit on a reliable infrastructure. And it applies to all of the other applications which you have in your organization. You need to have a very reliable infrastructure to run these applications and platforms. So we've got a big portfolio in the data center space. under our infrastructure solutions group. Now, depending on what application you want to host in whatever infrastructure deployments, be the private cloud, hybrid cloud, edge compute scenarios, or software-defined hyperconverged, we have the portfolio which can address your needs. So the conversation I had today was just a sneak peek into what we as an organization are thinking about in this changing times. What are we seeing or hearing from the market? How are we reacting to some of the trends in putting together solutions and propositions so that we can go and address some of these aspects? Now, if you want to drill a little deeper, understand what we're doing, and if you want us to do another session, please feel free to write to me. I've flashed my email address on the screen. Alternatively, you can also reach out to the organizers, and they will be able to channel this back to us. So with that, thank you very much for taking time out, attending this, and have a good conference ahead. So with that, back to you, Tina.
Thank you, Mr. Jose. Thank you for delivering such a good presentation. I hope our audience must have enjoyed it. Thanks a lot for being here.
Thank you.